All right, good morning, everybody. Let's get going here. Okay, U.S. stocks rose for the second quarter, but June wasn't a green month. Kind of finally saw a pullback instead of in May. We saw it in June this year, as we saw the Fed announce that the stimulus was going to be most likely unwound toward sometime next year. We also saw the Chicago PMI that missed expectations slightly, and was just above the 50 level, signaling slight expansion on Friday. And you saw a little bit of mixed action. I mean, nothing significant. S&P was down about 7 points. You can see that some of the defenses were still up on the day, relative to some of the other sectors, but nothing significant. I think a little bit of a correction after a nice bounce that we've had into the close of the second quarter. We had a bit of a mixed action out of Asia. We had Japanese markets that traded quite well. You can see that the yen continues to make new lows. Not new lows, but continues to be able to weaken back toward recent lows. We also have had the Hang Seng that had quite a reasonable night. I think up about 1.78%, and so we did manage to have a decent session. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so we also had Chinese manufacturing data that came out over the weekend that was really important. The actual government data was signaled slight expansion, but still weaker than it has been recently. And then the HSBC numbers, which are probably a little bit more reliable, but focuses more specifically on the smaller businesses, showed contraction, and its biggest contraction over the past 9 months. So I think that's really important to keep an eye on. Just a correction, sorry about the Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong is actually closed overnight. So we did see a big down day in Australia overnight, which is kind of a big discrepancy from where we saw elsewhere. So maybe worth keeping an eye on. We had a nice bounce out of gold overnight. I'll go over some of the individual stock charts on those in a little bit. I think we finally saw that technical level of 1177 or 1180 that we showed about 4 or 5 days ago as our first level of support. It's more of just a dead cat bounce, I think, off of a technical level than anything. So it's something that we're going to have to continue to monitor to see if this thing can gain any traction. I do think that we're probably going to see some bounce in some of these shares, though, for different reasons. But I think that's something we can monitor for the next few sessions, and that may have a bit of an impact on the local market here. All right. Let's jump into the corporate action on the day. Very little going on. We do have a few stocks going ex-div. That's Lovo, Foschini, and Adcock Ingram. So those are all going ex-div today. Foschini's the bigger one, obviously, at 2.70. Don't forget that on the open this morning. We also got SAB Miller that was raised to accumulate versus neutral at Mirabod. Never heard of them, so not sure how much of a difference that could make. All right, like we said, we have the Tankan survey. It's the most bullish out of Japan, the most bullish that businesses have been there in years. We had the PMI number, like I said, out of China. That was a 50.1. Those are the Chinese numbers. With the HSBC numbers were a miss. And we'll continue to monitor those data sets closely, because I think those are very, very important with what's going on right now in China. We got PMI across the entire Euro region today, so those will be important to watch. Mortgage apps out of the UK, unemployment out of the Eurozone. We've got local PMI here at 11 o'clock. That's also going to be important for us. And we've got construction spending in the US, and then we've got ISM manufacturing in the US as well. All right, let's jump into the maps. All right, first one I'm going to show is the ALZ. ALZ, I'll just bring it forward just a touch so you can see a little bit more clearly, but the big technical level that we've been looking at is right here, this neckline of this little inverse head and shoulder pattern. Goes back to support that was held also in when was that, back in March, beginning of March or end of February, about 34,725, we'll call it, somewhere in there. We managed to close above that. We closed at 34,000. We closed we closed at 34,800 on Friday's session. You can see here we've opened pretty much around flat line, down a couple points this morning. But this level, for us to get back above it, was pretty important. I mean, you can see when we dropped this level and we came down and tested it in the middle of June, we managed to have a huge rally off of it. And then the day after we dropped this level, we really ripped down hard the next day. So, watch that closely. I mean, if we can hold this level this morning, I wouldn't be surprised if we could really gain some traction here. This level's been quite important for us, so let's keep an eye on that. All right, I'm going to show copper as well. The reason why I want to show copper is obviously because of some of the the selling that we've seen out of China and the manufacturing data that we've seen out of China. I guess what I really wanted to show is just the consolidation that we started to see below this breakdown. And we kind of broke below previous lows and a bit of a continuation pattern, and we're seeing this little consolidation that's happening here right below the price. I think is something that we've got to watch very, very closely over the next couple sessions, because if we can't regain kind of 307 on a closing basis, which we actually are above right now intraday, but if we can't regain this on a closing basis soon, I think we'll really see a snap below 3 and some further downside. All right, Cecil I want to show because we in a bit of a just run from the close here. We're at a bit of making a bit of a flag pattern here on Cecil. We kind of got a head fake as we drop below our support here at 420 for a couple sessions. Couldn't really break down from there, and since we popped back above there nicely on Friday, we're testing this sort of level. I think if we can get above this level, I really think this could be the one of our resource stocks that could really have a real run. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing trade up to 500-ish by the end of the year. So watch Cecil today. Like I said, if we get above kind of 434 on Cecil today, above Friday's highs, which were at 434, I think we could really hit the accelerator on Cecil. All right, Rimgrow made a nice breakout from also a flag pattern as well. I'll show it from there. You can see nice breakout here. We kind of came down and more or less tested support down here around 171, 172, and then breaking to the upside of this flag pattern. Could have a hell of a lot more to go on the upside of this thing in Rimgrow. One thing I've learned is not to try to shorten the strength on this share because it just goes and goes and goes. All right, the gold shares I wanted to show as well because we talked about this earlier. And what the gold price has done since Friday. We were on top of this one in terms of the breakdown when it happened. Really broke down in about a call it a $8-9 8 or 9 rand channel here. When we broke down to the downside, we've already hit our target, and that's really what I wanted to show. So if we back out a little bit here, you can see that we kind of just breaking out of the downtrend a little bit and quite hard. I think we could really come back and potentially test at least support somewhere here between 54 and 56, test resistance. So I think we can have a nice little bounce here, and gold fills up to the 54 or 56 rand level. And then Anglo Gold, also think we've got a similar type thing that's going to happen here. Pattern looks almost identical. Obviously the gold shares will tend to trade very much like each other, but same sort of thing. We had that same breakdown. We reached our target almost literally exactly, and we're breaking down this one in terms of this little downward sloping trend line looks a little bit more perfect, and you can see we're literally right at resistance to break out of this little downtrend here. So watch this one really closely. I think if we trade up this morning in Anglo Gold, I really think that in all likelihood we'll do the same sort of thing as in Goldfields. We'll test 156 to 162, somewhere in that region, in Anglo Gold over the next session or two. All right, ShopRite. I wanted to show ShopRite. wanted to back out here and just, the 183 level has kind of been the magic number for, well, you can see how long that is. It's going back a year. That's going back a year, sorry, in ShopRite. We did get that's not a close above it right there. We actually closed at the bottom of that. And we haven't been able to close above 183 this entire time. We literally finally got a close above 183 as of Friday. We closed at 185.50. I know it was quarter end, but this is a major push. I think this thing could potentially has a hell of a lot of upside here, because you got to look at the kind of channel that we created to the downside here. I mean, which is massive. I think we could break out in serious fashion here. So keep an eye on ShopRite. I mean, we really could go much, much higher if we can manage to hold this 183 level. All right, I'm going to show Barclays on the LSE real quick as well. Barclays is really testing critical support. You can see there, call it 277. Just a hair below, call it 278 actually, basically right at where we closed, just a touch below where we closed on Friday. But I think that there's actually quite a nice little setup here in Barclays, and if we can just make a little bit of a push higher, I think you could have a nice move to the upside in Barclays today or the next day if we can just hold this level. All right, the last thing I just want to talk about here, guys, we're going to start taking some questions from viewers on Twitter every morning. If you guys have some questions, shoot us a question on Twitter at African Gateway. We'll try to respond to as many as we can. Maybe we'll just do one or two a day. I've just got one question this morning from the Striker Investment Club, asking about NASPERS and saying that they shorted NASPERS at the close on Friday because it had such a big close. It closed up 10 or 12 rand in the auction. And the question they're asking is, their goal for this was to close it on short-term, directional move. They're looking to scalp a little bit out of this on the opening, and how they would play this and how much is the rand going to impact it. The one thing obviously is that Naspers obviously trades a lot off the back of Tencent. Tencent didn't trade last night because Hong Kong was closed. But obviously rand strength is not the most bullish thing for Naspers because of its exposure overseas. The rand has hardly strengthened this morning, so I wouldn't take too much out of that. But I think it's going to be, right now I've seen, since I've been sitting at my desk, I've seen S&P futures rally about 9 points this morning. So obviously we're starting to build some strength into this morning's session. I would play that one really close to the vest with that kind of breakout we saw this morning. Technically we're in a little bit of no man's land here, but since we broke back above 700, which you can see there on the maps, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing retest the highs. So being in that position, I would probably be looking to take profits if you can get profits early this morning, and rather quickly. And if you're out of the money, and you are out of the money for longer than 15-20 minutes on the open, I'd probably just look to cover at a small loss quite quickly, because technically there's not a whole lot in your favor on that setup. That's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot.